I feel like a lot of the issues as far as black student, white student at PWI is because I feel like a lot of people don't understand each other. I feel like a lot of fear comes from things you don't understand, you know what I'm saying? And what I really just wish people could understand is that we're not all that different, you know? We're really not all that different. We feel the same thing you feel. If you're uncomfortable in a situation, we're uncomfortable too, you know what I'm saying? If you don't like being here, we don't eat, you know what I'm saying? So like, I just wish they could understand that just because I'm black and he's white and he lives in a bad part of town and a lot of bad things happen in that part of town, that doesn't make him any less human than you are, you know what I'm saying? So I wish we could understand each other. In all honesty, I just wish they would listen. I just wish I could sit down with professors and people like the kid who said that, you know, and just tell them. I wish they could listen to our point of view. They don't even have to agree with it. I just want them to hear our point of view, because if they could get where we're coming from, maybe that could clear up some of that confusion, you know?
And do you feel, even in classroom spaces and predominantly white classroom spaces, is there anything different you would want your professors to know?
You said in white classroom spaces? Mm-hmm. Probably that same thing, you know? We're not all that different. Like, I've been in choir since I got here, since I got to Western. And a lot of the times I'm the only black person in there. So I just wish people could understand that you don't have to treat me differently because I don't look like you. And a lot of them don't know it, you know what I'm saying? I'm not saying everybody's brazenly, oh, I'm racist, da 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 da. A lot of people don't even know it, and they really don't have a problem with black people, but they're doing behaviors that were just taught to them, you know what I'm saying? So I just wish everybody could be educated, you know? I'm sure there's a lot of things we need to learn as well, but I just want everybody to listen to each other.
Going back to what I said earlier, I just wish they knew, like, the one black student you may have in your class, like, I guarantee they're intimidated and they have their guard up and they're trying to prove themselves. And that also what I said earlier, like, we're just one in like we're just one person surrounded by people who don't look like us. Like, for a lot of students of color who grew up in predominantly black schools and black neighborhoods and stuff, this is completely new to them. So just to like know that this is like, I don't know how to explain it.
Would you describe it as like a culture shock or
Yeah.
just a different environment?
Yeah, and it's almost like some students are trying to like fit the mold of the majority, when I don't think, like, regardless of race, I don't think anyone should have to feel like that or that they have to change who they are just to fit in with how other people are.
Do you think, is there something different you would want them to know, like being in a classroom space, like what you want your professors to know about being a student? I know you touched on it a little.
Yeah, I think one thing teachers can do is put their best effort forward to make all students feel comfortable, but also not to just point the black student out and like showcase them in front of the whole class. Because I also know with a bunch of my friends, whenever the topic of African American anything comes up in class, they're often like, everyone turns to them and looks at them and expects them to know everything about it. And that puts a lot of pressure on us. And I think that's something that needs to stop. Like, don't put the spotlight on the one student of color, because they're here to learn just like you are, and like, we don't know all the answers. And I think another thing that teachers really need to do is to just confront their biases, because everybody has them. Like, everything you take in from social media, from how you were raised and stuff, they form an image of how you view people different than you. And whether you know them or not, like, everyone has them, and just to confront them and to try and fight against that and form your own view of people based on who they are instead of what you've heard about them as a whole. Like, just not to generalize students of color, but to get to know them personally, because we're each individuals.
I just think it's important to note that we're not different than other people, so like singling us out just because of our skin color shouldn't be done, because we're all here for like the same reason. So you shouldn't like say, oh, we're talking about like Black people in history, so then everyone looks at like the person who's like Black or something. I don't think that should be a thing. So don't single anybody out.
And something I think is important to mention too is, although we have the same skin color, we all come from different experiences. So the typical Black stereotypes we hear of might not apply to everyone, because even we've grown up very differently.
Mm-hmm.
Do you notice any differences like in your honors classes versus your other classes?
With race, not really, but mainly the fact that like honors classes are always more personal, which definitely like makes it even more, I don't know how to describe it, like an even more safer environment, because in honors class, you can tell a professor cares for you personally and wants to see you succeed instead of just like the class as a whole.
For me, like I've taken honors like chemistry classes, and I did notice that I was like the only person of color there. So that's different, because in my other like general education classes like comm or something, there were a lot more Black people there. So that's something that I noticed.
That's a good question. I think the big thing is professors need to know that we as African Americans don't come from the same background as them. So a lot of times, I think professors, you hear the stereotype like, hey, professors, they don't care about you and this and this and this. And I think professors could care a little more about African Americans, just in all honesty, because you have to realize as an African American, me as a first generation African American college student, it's very hard. I can't call my mom and be like, hey, mom, can you help me with my homework? Hey, mom, I need a little motivation, because, my mom only has an associate's degree, which, she doesn't have a 4-year degree. She's been to some college, so she can help me with some stuff. But as far as a 4 years bachelor's degree, she can't really help me with anything. So I think teachers just need to know that sometimes you have to push your scholars a little further and encourage them a little more, especially your African American students, because we don't go through the same thing white people go through. And if we're just being 100% transparent here, we have the systematic racism on our backs right now. We have the stresses of being a college student. We have everyday life. We have trying to manage time. Most African Americans are low income, so we're working jobs. So we have a lot of stuff that we're dealing with, and sometimes it can become overwhelming. So I think that professors just need to be able to make those connections with their students and make sure that they know what their students are going through. A lot of people don't know, but the systematic racism in the world now has and is still affecting me, because I still want to protest. I still want my voice to be heard. I still want to be able to stand up for what's going on. So at the same time, I'm protesting, which is like my job, on top of going to school, on top of making sure that my life is taken care of, on top of making sure my dog is walked every day, on top of making sure my homework is done, on top of making sure I go to work on time every day. So there's a lot more to me than what you can see.
Just to know that we're trying our best, and when we are saying that we're struggling, it's not an excuse. We actually are, and a lot of the times we don't have the resources, or we don't feel comfortable speaking to the professors, because they've already had this pre-notion of maybe if they sit in the back of the classroom, or they have a learning disability, they don't know that about their student. So just taking the time to get to know them.
To make us feel more welcome, I feel like we should be able to, I feel like on this campus specifically, WKU, we do a really good job of that. We do a really good job of making Black students feel welcome. The Black community has an overabundance of welcoming and activities and family-oriented bonding on this campus. You know what I'm saying? And that's part of the reason I stayed here, you know, because I felt like I would be more comfortable here with ISEC and CAB and all those other black organizations than anywhere else without them, where I was just left to fend for myself. You know what I'm saying? So as far as that, I just wish somehow we could integrate it, you know, integrate it into the classroom. Like, I shouldn't be able to, maybe if more professors knew about ISEC or black women of Western or black men of Western, they could understand that we're not entirely, you know, just the outlier, you know what I'm saying? So just educate each other.
Yeah, I would say like what I just said, like treat us as if we were any other student.
I think something that's like really important is to just make sure that black voices are being heard. So for example, my history class, I did History 102, and we talked a lot about like perspectives so that like everyone in the class was hearing the different perspectives like during slavery times. And then also in my Honors 251 class, we did a whole section on race. And I thought it was very important because it taught like, it kind of forced people who weren't being like directly affected by like racism stuff to actually know what like other people are going through and be able to like empathize with them. And I thought that was really cool that my teachers did that.
Yeah, basically the same as she said. It's very important to get black voices out there and heard, because we mainly hear, you know, colonization, like all like the kind of white parts of history, but focusing more on how everything affected black people and hearing that from their side, I think is very important, because not everyone just thinks racism exists because they don't live with it. They don't grow up with black people. But like, if you hear testimony from black individuals who maybe were affected by certain movements here and there, I think that can open everyone's eyes a lot more to see, wow, this is a real thing. Wow, I can help with this, or I can play a part in this, or wow, I might have played a part in this, not even known it, like, you know, so.
And then I also think it's really important to just like make sure you're like telling your students the resources that they have on campus, such as like, I know that they're doing like support groups now because in light of everything that's been happening. And then also there's just like ISEC that you can be a part of to be with like other people who look more like you in a like predominantly white campus. And then like even student support services has like really helped me. So just like showing these resources are available to make sure that they're not alone.
I think with a lot of the time with me being the only African American student within my class, I wish a lot of my professors would have reached out to me and say, hey, are you okay? Do you feel comfortable in this course? Just trying to attach a face to the name. A lot of the time I felt like I had to do the legwork on doing that with professors. But if there was an incident whereas I fell and I fractured my ankle one time, my professor didn't know anything about me. So when I was emailing him, he was just like, well, I'll see you in class. And not really sympathetic towards what was going on.